their favorite ass when it comes to sexual questions and boundaries is, is
black and white questions is what they want.
And so like, according to what your mom said, you can do it, just don't get addicted to it. Would you say in general, is masturbation wrong? And, if you take advice like that, you can do it all you want, just don't get addicted to it. Like at what point do you, start to draw a line saying this is where masturbation crosses a line where I just don't see it glorifying God in any kind of capacity?
Yeah, I would love to know both your thoughts on this, but I asked my mom later why she said that to me, and she said she wanted to say it so that I could have my own journey of discovering whether it was right or wrong, and for me to take shame out of the equation.
That's good.
And which was very intentional of her, because in freedom, we get to decide what we want, and we get to decide how we act, and the choices we make in the darkness that nobody knows happens when we have the freedom to decide what we want to do. And I just want to, before I answer that question, like, is it right or wrong? I want to say two things. One, I want to say that God, He created you with sexual desires, and He loves that part of you.
Yeah.
And it's such a beautiful part of your identity, and it is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to be proud of. It is a part of who you are. And I really think that the world perverts our sexuality. The church shames it, but the kingdom celebrates it. And your sexuality is beautiful. It is a gift, but it's kind of like a fire. And this fire, you have to decide how you want to manage it. And the second thing I would say is that I think when it comes to the subject, it is not black and white, it's gray. And so that's why it's been hard to have this conversation, because nobody can, we can't really figure out we're still figuring out what is right and what is wrong, because it doesn't seem to be the subject that's so easy to decide on. And so it's kind of instead this measurement of healthy to unhealthy. And so the two sides of the coin, is it right and is it wrong?
Yes.
So there's one side where, and I'd love for you guys to pipe in whenever, but there's one side where it's it's okay. Some people believe that it's okay because there is a place that you can masturbate as a healthy practice because it's done for sexual release rather than sexual gratification.
Right.
And
so it's like the masturbating without lusting part of kind of what we were talking about before this podcast. Yes.
Well, so it's masturbating without an object or person that you're
doing it without even thinking of anything. Which I have met someone that did that, and I was like, okay, I was never able to do that. In order for me to masturbate and orgasm, I had to be imagining something, or even more than that, had a few times in the past watched porn. There had to be something that got me there.
Yes. In the past, I had watched Outlander. I'm just going to be really honest. Oh my God. That is so horrible to admit right now, but I'm just being really honest, things that made me struggle. But also, okay, I will say, this is vulnerable. I don't even think I've told JJ this, but so one thing, as I was wrestling through this years ago, and I'm going to be honest with the people here, this wasn't I wrestled with this years and years and years ago. This is I wrestled with this even while I was doing Heart of Dating podcast, just really honest. You need to know that even as a leader, we still wrestle with things, and we're not perfect, and there's great things. And I love that your mom allowed you to go on your own journey, because I do think this needs to be a journey that people go on and really seek to understand, is this a win for me or not? Yeah. And where do I land with God on this? Very, very personal, otherwise it's very easy to just shame ourselves and our bodies, which is also not a good thing, and then hide from our bodies. And so for me, I had heard this teaching of, okay, you can masturbate without lusting, for example, and maybe that could be a win for you. And I heard even somewhere else, what if you take that to the point of you masturbate and you focus on God? Okay. I know this sounds super strange probably, but that is what somebody who talks about this often was talking about with me, and on a personal level, because I was how do you truly, I'm curious, do you really, is it possible to masturbate without thinking of a person or a, something that stirs you in a sexual way? And I was because I just don't think that's really possible. And I had a conversation with this person. She's try to focus on God and like your love for God. And I was like, okay. So I'll be honest, I tried that. Okay. I did. I was like, I want to see if this is like a possible thing. I'm really curious. And it just didn't, it's still, I don't know. It felt weird to me. Like that, I'm not saying if you do that, like that's wrong. Mm-hmm. In fact, I know somebody else who's a leader at a different church, like who does do that. That's actually a male, and he thinks it glorifies God. And I'm not here to judge anybody who does that. I'm here to say, from my experience of trying to focus on nothing, or focus in this case on God while masturbating, it wasn't a win for me. It still didn't, like, I can't 100% without certainty say that my mind didn't also stray to other things.
Yeah. And I think a huge teller is, how do you feel after?
Yes.
And that was the thing for me. So like, I would ask everybody, like, is it right? Is it wrong? Like, I was like, I don't care if this is an awkward conversation. I want to know.
Right.
And in doing that, I also realized, like, when I like had finished, I didn't feel good. It felt like I was grieving.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's something there. And it feels like conviction and guilt mixed in one. And so that's why I was like, maybe this isn't healthy for me. Yeah. And maybe this is lust. And maybe this is a compromise of what God has designed for my like sexuality. Yeah. And knowing also that in our Christian faith, there is a part of our faith that has encourages us to be like self-denial, where it's like, we are going to sacrifice because we know that God's way is hard, but it's so much greater. Yeah. And as I prayed for it, like I wrote in my journal, like for months about it. Like, and the first time I wrote about it, I was like, M word. You know, because I was like, if someone read my journal, I don't want to. But I was like, God, I'm going to go on this journey with you. And I want you to lead me to a place that I'm convicted that this is either good for me or it's not good for me. And one of my, like, I call it my rule of life. It's a question that I ask in every situation to help me make a decision is, does this elevate or compromise my relationship with the Lord? And I realized that it compromised my relationship with the Lord because afterwards I would feel further away from him. I didn't feel closer to him.
Yeah. That's a great like litmus and question to ask yourself. You were going to say something, baby. I heard you.